our preview for the 2023 Washington guys. I'm not doing it. I'm still not doing it. They're already going to change it. So I've gone this
Oh my
far.
God, right? That quick.
Speaking of the changes in the other areas of this franchise, that's the story of this team, is that it doesn't really matter what happens this season in so many ways because of the new ownership, because of the new era that's coming. But what does that new era mean for this regime? You know, how are they thinking about it? And honestly, some of the moves that they've made, even though it seems like lame duck type stuff, I don't mind them rolling with Sam Howell, even independent of how Sam Howell's looked, right? And some of the flashes that we've seen, which there has been. When you're this sort of team, I think that there's a benefit to seeing what you have in the 5th round pick and potentially hitting on that guy rather than starting Jacoby Brissett if it's even close in the quarterback competition. So you look at just the team in general. You have Sam Howell as a 5th round pick. Let's say Sam Howell is a guy worth building around. Stepping into next year, this team could have $100 million in cap space working on the rookie quarterback timeline and the rookie quarterback financial clock. The only guys they've really paid more than $10 million against the cap next year are Jonathan Allen, Terry McLaurin, and Duron Payne. So this team could go a lot of different ways. Yes. There's a lot of flexibility. It's not like their cap is a mess and they've been this middling team that's tried to squeeze too much out of it. It's nuked their future. So I think that there's reason to be optimistic with the ownership and just with the flexibility that you have beyond this season, independent of just being so happy that someone else is in charge here.
I honestly just put it as Washington's kind of like free rolling this year because I think as fans of that team, they've already won 2023.
Yeah,
it's like they have. It's the best you got.
What is success? Everything that's already happened.
Everything. You got. It's also funny though. They have a new ownership, a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback. If someone told me a team had those 3 things, I'd be like, oh, so new head coach, new everything. It's like weird dynamics going on with that, but that's why
kind of it is that it does feel like a lame duck year for Rivera in some ways, but at the same time,
it's like a fresh start.
I don't see it super negatively. Yes, it's a little uneven and it's kind of messy and knotty, but not in a way that makes me feel pessimistic about them. If that makes sense.
It's not like, oh, how are they going to get out of this? Oh my God, they're going to have to nuke everything. It's more just like, okay, it's like you said with the cap room, the guys they paid, and that's the thing is the guys they paid aren't guys who are like, ooh, that's a rough contract. It's like, no, those are 2 real stars, really. And Duron Payne's an ascending player, almost a star. So it's, that's okay. So if whatever maybe the next regime is, not a bad situation. But I totally get what you mean with like the Sam Howell experience. It's like, I think Jacoby Brissett is a better player. Obviously he's a vet and everything, but why not? Why not? And especially you have guys he can throw to make plays. Like, screw it. Like you said, it's a dice roll. Like it's like you're truly taking a chance here. And then whoever comes in, or if whatever happens this offseason, you always have some data points to look at. It's not just going, well, we don't know. We only gave this guy 2 starts when all the starters are on IR. It's actually with a fresh eyes on him. So even if he's kind of like in the preseason has shown flashes and there has been some stuff, I'm like, we'll see. At least I understand this line. I think I've really come around on it as I've kind of gone along the last couple of weeks through camp.
So I'm assuming your big questions you have about the offense, Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy related. So let's talk about Sam Howell first. What do you think Sam Howell is, and what are the impressions that you've gotten from Sam Howell in limited preseason exposure and then the one game that we saw from last year?
Okay, when you maybe first watched Jalen Hurts, what were kind of the positives with him? Beautiful deep ball, and tough, and could create a little bit. He was a pretty good runner. That's kind of where I'm at with Howell, but like maybe a step down. But it's in this preseason, he's already shown a better progression than he ever should. North Carolina offense is very simplistic. It's not his fault.
Just bombs away, baby. Just you go throwing go routes on the outside. That's what it was.
Yes. And but you should watch Drake May in it. But if you watch Howell in it, and you can still see some of the stuff that he's learning. He's learning the feel. He's trying to get to the right thing with some of the progression stuff, but it's just, he takes a little while. His eyes are a little slow, but he's doing the right thing. So, okay, there's some potential there. He has a long throwing motion, kind of takes an ice age on some of that. But again, he's tough. He can make big plays with his legs and down the field, which I do think is, again, dice rolls that gives you a chance at quarterback, because at least you're creating something and creating explosive plays that maybe if you're not efficient underneath, It's the 49ers discussion. Hey, I can hit one 40-yard go ball, and I can't string together 5, slant routes, but at least I hit that 40-yard go ball. So I think he does bring that. So again, there's worse guys I've seen teams take chances on as their starter. I mean, maybe look at what the Cardinals are doing right now. But it's honestly just watching this. He's going to give him a chance. He at least does some positive things. It's just that a lot of the efficiency stuff, the down to down quarterbackness, I think he still has a long ways to go, but we'll see. That's why you're throwing him into the fire. He's a 5th round pick. That's why you win the 5th round.
I also think that the 5th round thing is probably overstated. He probably is more of like a 3rd round pick.
I had a 3rd round grade on him
if he went in the 3rd round, no one would have blinked. This is a guy who had 1st round buzz around him heading into his final year in college, justified or not. But he could have gone around those other guys, the Malik Willises, the Desmond Ritters in that draft. And I don't think anyone would have blinked. So calling him a 5th rounder and saying, well, how many 5th round picks have succeeded in this sort of role? I think he has more pedigree than that as a prospect.
I agree.
What I think he's got some Baker Mayfield to his game with more creation ability, which that was always kind of the concern with Baker, is that when he couldn't do anything outside of what you gave him and the physical tools weren't overwhelming in the pocket, and
he wanted to create.
Yes.
It's like me. I go to art class when I was in elementary school and everything. I wanted to do something creative. I can't paint for shit. So it's exactly like that.
He's got more to him in that area, and he does have a decent arm. He really does push the ball down the field beautifully. And there's a couple throws in the preseason. He had like a deep kind of, I don't even know how you would describe it. It was like a post corner stop. I think it was to McLaurin, and he really can rip that thing when everything is moving in the same direction. So I think that he's got enough to him with the skill position players in that offense, where if things are constructed in the right way, and if the offensive line can just be average over the course of the season, that they could actually be pretty entertaining on that side of the ball.
How I've looked at him is like, he wasn't like my favorite quarterback in that class, but it's like, he still had stuff I liked. And even when I watch him right now, it's like, I'm not dismissing this and going like, I'm not laughing at it. I go like, what are they doing? Oh my God. It's more like, yeah, there's a chance. It's like, yeah, he has some blemishes, but he does some cool shit. So like you say, he's going to make it fun. Like, there's going to be a lot of explosive plays. I think
I'm into watching this team. I have Terry McLaurin in every fantasy draft, every fantasy league that I'm in. I've always
been in a dynasty league. It's like my first scary Terry stock in any dynasty league. I'm pretty
excited. I've had the stock since day one. I mean, I've always been a huge McLaurin guy, but I just believe that Sam Howell is going to be good enough to take advantage of the skill position talent within that offense.
Yeah. He's going to give him a chance.
Yes. Their quarterback play last year was horrendous. The half a season from Carson Wentz, but also Heineke did not play well last year.
Nope.
It was some of the worst football that he's played, even though we've had flashes of him playing better than that. And I think that's important to point out. And the same thing goes with the offensive line. The offensive line isn't overwhelming on this team. Okay. It's just not. They went out and got Andrew Wiley and Nick Gates. Those were the big swings they made in free agency. But there were so many moving parts over the last couple of years because of injury. They bet on Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner at guard. It's been a disaster for 2 years.
Disaster.
And I think Rouillet is in his injury issues. He retired. That's how frustrating his injury problems had become. So even if that line is the 20th best line in the league, but it stays relatively healthy all year, I think in the aggregate, that's probably a better outcome for this group than it's been in each of the last 2 seasons.
I put it as, I go, the O-line seems okay. They're all playable. And then I just said,
that is a benefit compared to what they've
had. Like, I know I didn't know how to describe it. It's like, yeah, like not overwhelming. Yes, of course. But it's like, they're all playable though. I'm not going like this. Oh my God.
Well, there's some questions. Cosme's never played guard full time. So Sam Cosme was a 2nd round pick. He's mostly been a tackle in his career. Sadiq Charles has not gotten a lot of run at left guard. So it's not like it's a rock solid group, but you can talk yourself into the outcome being better than what we've seen recently.
Absolutely. It's better than it has been. That's a huge improvement. Hey, shit to average is always an improvement.
That's a big thing. And again, stability and consistency, I think, would be a big uptick for them.
Absolutely.
So I like the backs in the sense that
I do too.
It's complementary. Okay. Brian Robinson is such a grinder in a good way. Their offensive line was a mess last year. He, I think, was 14th in the percentage of his rushes that went over expected last season. So even though the box score stats aren't overwhelming, he averaged less than 4 yards a carry.
He's a bruiser.
That number was right in line with Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
So I think that the path to efficiency for him as a rusher is pretty solid. And even if Antonio Gibson has been frustrating in some ways, he's a plus receiver. He was really good in the receiving game last year.
And Bieniemy knows it. He's already using him on choice routes and stuff. So it's like, okay, they're still going to get that usage. And
so those two guys in combination with each other, I think makes a lot of sense. And then Jahan Dotson has really flashed. That guy, I think, is going to be pretty damn good.
He's pretty fun. I kind of let's save the conversation on him.
Okay,
I figure we both. I think I did not go for a hipster pick with this one. I was like, no, we're going for this guy right here. But also Chris Rodriguez, their third running back, the rookie. He's had a good preseason. Who did I call? Oh, he was a Diet Coke somebody. That's not, the joke's over. It's already ruined. I have to explain my own joke.
We're on team 32 here, buddy.
Yeah, I know, but we are
on team 32
here.
All right, so here's my thing with the person. Okay, the personnel we like. Okay. Yes. I think the personnel has a chance to be pretty fun and better than people might expect from the outside looking in. But here's the looming question. What is an Eric Bieniemy offense? And do we like an Eric Bieniemy offense?
I'm not going to watch 2012 Colorado Buffaloes film. Sorry, guys. So I couldn't tell you the last time it was truly his fingerprints all over the offense. There was some Chiefs East going on. There's a lot of Andy Reid fingerprints just from the preseason, I'm guessing. Some staples. Kind of had one confusing thing where they were lining up in formations, the 1x3 formations where the tight end is the single receiver with Cole Turner.
Not Travis Kelce. Yeah.
Kelce. So that had me a little bit going like, no, KYP, know your personnel. So I think it's going to be that more or less. The run game has looked great. Really just diverse and very well coached. And so the run game actually has me a little encouraged with this team, but the passing game is kind of a lot of crossers. There has been some vertical elements, but it's a lot of what you see with the Chiefs. So like you said, the curls and the corner stops and those types of things, but it's gonna be vertical, I think, but I think that's a good thing with Howell as your quarterback.
Let's get to the defense because we can have a larger Bieniemy conversation for a different category. Biggest question about the Washington defense for you heading into this season.
Can they sustain through this whole season? And do it week in, week out and be that true strength. I think they can. I had them as my third defense in the top 10 defenses, and I actually feel even better about it. They have some dudes up front, the ass kickers just across the board. Hopefully Chase Young is now battling like a stinger, and it kind of is a bummer because he looked good in the preseason when he was playing. He looked back like that should have been number one pick in his class, or defensive player of the year, defensive rookie of the year. But the defensive front's the strength of this team. But I just think the other guys on this defense it'll allow them to sustain, because some of the question marks that they had specifically at the DB room, they shorted up a little bit, and I have some answers and some ascension from those players. I feel pretty good about it. So I just want to see if they can just stick for all 17 weeks. Del Rio has kind of had, as a defensive coordinator, has kind of had some up and downness as a D coordinator. They're top 5 1 year, and then they're
it's hard. Next year. It's hard for me.
Top 5
about this in the top 10 defensive show.
We did. I talked myself back into it.
At 20, I think it was 2020 and 2021. They were top 5 defense in 2020, and then in 2021, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And I personally know that I spent a decent amount of time at offseason being like, oh man, Washington's defense, they're going to be fun again. And then just completely crash back down to earth. There is no logic behind that sentiment if you look at the underlying metrics for this team last season.
Incredible.
Okay. They're one thing I will say, they were second in EPA per dropback on third down last year, and 15th on first and second down. Okay. That tends to normalize, but they were top 5 in success rate in both of those areas. Okay. They were 29th in EPA generated off of turnovers last year, and were one of the best defenses in the league. So the markers that typically point to regression in a positive way would lead you to feel pretty good about this unit. The Jack Del Rio experience and my being burned by it before is just tough for me to get out of my mind.
Boy, don't I know. But that is one that has to be in your mind, and they don't overcomplicate anything. This defense.
I was looking at some of the buttons from last year and just coverage rates and things that they did and everything else. It was all the same. It was all the same.
It doesn't. It's what he ran in Jacksonville. It's like he's run the same stuff since he's been a play caller. It's what he ran in Denver. It's what he want to run with the Raiders.
I guess that's part of my concern. Right. Is that there was no tweak that pointed to why it should be so much better. And I mentioned this on the defensive show. Chris Harris, who was their defensive backs coach, well regarded in the league. He's now in Tennessee, I think, as their defensive passing game coordinator. He was somebody that the Niners were looking to potentially interview to be their defensive coordinator. He's not on this staff anymore. Got some moving pieces in this defensive secondary. like the safeties. Cam Curl and Derek Forrest have played very well for this team, but you got a rookie corner. So even with the stars up front, and they are stars, Montez Sweat is super good, underrated player, I think, in some ways. We know about Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne.
Yeah.
There's just enough of the Jack Del Rio uncertainty and enough new pieces overall where I just can't fully commit to the idea of them just being this elite defense. We've already gone over all this, but I wanted to just rehash it a little bit.
Reaffirm your point.
Yes.
And I know as you cast some doubt into me, again, it happened again. I looked at the roster. I looked at metrics. I watched them off film.
I do not blame you. I
just was like, yeah, this is great. Number 2, like screw number 3. Give them the silver. Yeah, I'm not giving them over the Cowboys. Don't worry. But I just like it. I like Emmanuel Forbes, their first round pick. Like, especially they're going to run quarters. Quarters can let you, especially how offenses like to attack in the passing game. It can let an outside corner come off and make a play. Yes, it's risky. That's Forbes' MO. He's a tough player. When I went to go to watch him, he's so skinny. I was like, no way I'm going to like this guy. Loved him. One of my favorite corners in this draft.
That says a lot. You don't.
Yeah.
You're a sizeism person. As a 6'5" foot man, you just look down on people, both figuratively and literally.
I got it from my 6'8", 300-pound dad. That's where it all comes from. But I mean, that's why everyone, when I was like, I love Devontae Smith and I love Chris Olave, people should be like, what? Wait, what? Like those? Yeah, they had some skills I could overcome my sizes takes. But no, Forbes is just a playmaker. I just really like his game. And then they moved St. Juice, who I'm higher on than maybe other people. I've talked to some other people that I really like respect, and they're like, "Oh, really? You like St. Juice?" I'm like, yeah, you don't, but they're bumping him into nickel, and he's long. Interesting. I'll keep an eye on him.
Last year, he's bounced around a little bit. I think that they're trying to find the right role for him.
But I like him.
They drafted that other guy from Illinois, whose name I cannot remember. We're on team 32. We're now in 40 minutes. Quan Martin, right? Quan Martin.
Yeah, Quan Martin. Yeah.
So it's, we'll see. They have potential answers. There's a chance this defense is one of the best defenses in football, and I was wrong, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I honestly don't even feel that strongly about it. It's just like a weird sinking feeling. That's it. There's nothing logical or scientific.
This last few months, it's been very refresh. I don't know if refreshing is the word. Like to see you just like we talked about the Chargers, and we talked about the Chargers defense, and you're like, nope. I was like, what is happening with Robert right now? all the things that burned you in the past, you're trying to overcome, and I like it. It's funny. You're learning. You're growing.
I'm slowly learning and growing. What is your X factor for the 2023 Washington football team? I'm mad that we even put it in the graphic below us on the video.
Sam Howell, I put it in.
That's a fair one. I did Bieniemy, I think similar kind of questions.
Same.
So we talked about Sam Howell, and for Bieniemy, this is a huge year. We've talked so much about his future and his upward mobility in the NFL and his lack of opportunities despite all of these interviews, and so much of that narrative, justified or not, has been that he worked under Andy Reid. He did not have as much control of the offense as some other offensive coordinators have. This is it. This is his show, and how well this goes, I think, will say a lot about his candidacy moving forward, his future in the NFL, but also this team.
Yeah.
I know that I feel pretty good about what this personnel could look like if deployed in the correct direction. And he's the one charged with doing that. So if this is an offense that we feel is consistently putting its players in advantageous positions, the players are good enough where this team could be fun as hell in stretches. And I think that timeline is on the table. But Eric Bieniemy has a huge hand in whether it becomes realized.
He absolutely does. And the preseason has not tilted me in either way. And so that's where
that's kind of what I was curious about. I'm not surprised to hear you say that. But.
Yeah. Well, because, they had the ones going against like backups and stuff. So I never, but they did. I didn't see maybe any mistakes that I might have been concerned about. Like it looked sound. And that's all I can say right now. It's like, I didn't see any glaring thing where I'm like, oh boy, this might be bad. It's like, no, I'm indifferent at this point in time. So I want to see, this is just like the Cowboys. Let me know in about 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'll have maybe a little bit better answer on what the scheme looks like.
All right. Your breakout player for the 2023 Washington football team. Who do you got?
Jahan Dotson. He's awesome.
No, same one.
Yeah. This is, you couldn't go anywhere else. This guy's awesome, guys. He's catching range, hands, route runner. He's just fun. Just awesome. It's undersized, but plays like he's another undersized guy that's like, no, he plays so much bigger, so that makes me love him.
But we saw it in college. I mean, that's who he was in college. He was just one of those guys that, and that's kind of why I'm excited. Like Zay Flowers, not the same kind of game, but still plays bigger than he was in college. Jahan Dotson, much more of a 50-50 ball, kind of win the ball in the air, small receiver. But just those guys that play bigger than they are. Jaden Reed was like that. Jaden Reed, that's why the Packers wanted Jaden Reed and were comfortable despite him not hitting certain size thresholds. So these guys
who got over 195 though. That's they actually hit it at the threshold. Sorry.
These guys that I think consistently play bigger than they are in college, that's something that just translates. That's always something that follows these receivers, and he's one of those guys.
Sticky hands. My comparison for him was Tyler Lockett. Just plays bigger than they are. They're best going intermediate and vertical, but he's a good route runner. He's going to be a touchdown machine his whole career. Like, cause he catches so big and he probably was a good basketball player. I'm not even sure, but I should ask Dane, but he can just go up and snatch it and he's going to help out whatever quarterback plays for him. Dan will know. Dan will be like, well, in 8th grade, he averaged 18 points a game. Like, he's awesome. Dane is just a machine. That show has just become me going like, hey, this guy. So what was his MO, Dane? And then just hearing,
did he ski at all? Was he a skier?
So was he in gymnastics in 5th grade? Like, it's awesome.
What is success for the Washington football team this season?
I think first and foremost would be maybe an answer at quarterback. Would be success, and I guess a winning record and just keep the good vibes going. I think that's a success.
It's a tough one for me. For the staff, it's different than for the organization. Right. For the staff, it's let's win enough to keep our jobs, which is that's success for them. I think an answer about whether Sam Howell is worth building around, either way, if he is, then that's a huge win for them. Yep. Then you've got 2 years of cheap quarterback play to potentially put together a team that can compete in the NFC. But we say this, every so often about teams. They're playing with house money, man. You got to feel so good. The idea that even the good vibes around like Sam Howell right now, and the fact that I think we're justified. Like, I think both of us are reasonably excited to watch him play football this year in this offense. That combined with the entire air around the organization, I'd be feeling pretty good if I rooted for this team, the Washington, whatever they're going to be.
When we say interesting, sometimes I use that as like a ha. I say they are so interesting without any snark whatsoever. Yeah. I genuinely mean that. And I'm very excited to watch this team. They're so curious. I just want to see how it all unfolds this year.